What is a supernatural event that happened in your life that just cannot be explained? One night I had a dream about my grandpa, who had died almost 20 years prior. We were in his home, and he kept telling me we need to clean the house. We need to get the house ready. When I asked him why, he just said she's coming home. My grandma, his wife of 50 years, died the next day. LOL, damn, he knew he was gonna get a talking to about how dirty the house was. When I bought my house there was an above ground pool that hadn't had a liner or pump for 15 plus years. I put in a new liner and pump. I filled the pool and got it all working one evening. I was super happy to have done it myself and wasn't worried at all. That night I had a dream about my grandma who had died about 2 weeks prior. She woke me up from the dream at about 4 AM and all I knew was I had to go look at the pool. I went outside and found I hadn't tightened the hose clamp on the return hose and pool water was shooting from the hose. From the amount of water around I could tell this happened no more than 5 minutes earlier. I put the hose back on, tightened the clamps, and I lost almost no water from the pool. I'm not superstitious and don't really believe in ghosts, but I don't have any explanation for it other than that. And they liked it that way. They didn't want other people, other than the kids. They were completely happy to be just wrapped up in each other. My dad died the day before his birthday in a hospice center. Afterwards, it was like he was still home. His touch lamp beside his recliner would go on by itself. The recliner would rock like someone was getting in it. And sometimes, my mom or my sister would hear my dad saying, "Fix me a cold drink." My mother died less than a year and a half later. After my mother died, there was never another sign of either of them being there. They've been gone now for close to 14 years now. That's actually pretty sweet, LOL. He waited for her. Red heart. It's like your father was waiting for your mother to come with him. Red heart. This was a very sad but beautiful story. Woke up one in the middle of the night to a man standing next to the bed staring at my so. He was slightly translucent and I figured it was just another sleep paralysis episode. Had them before so knew the drill. And rolled over and went to go back to sleep. Normally being able to move isn't part of sleep paralysis. And immediately my heart began to race as I realized I need to roll over and check what I saw. A person was still standing there, staring at my so. Then he made eye contact with me, stared at me for a while before turning around and walking to the wall, slowly fading away with each step. Next morning So wakes up looking like shoot and said she had the worst night's sleep because she kept having the feeling that someone was watching her. Glad we no longer live in that house. What did the person look like other than being translucent? Did it look otherwise human? Sleeping in the guest room of my in-laws house. I awoke to Death standing next to my bed. I couldn't breathe and felt the most amazing peaceful feeling. I said, "I am ready to go." Death said. Then Death was gone and I was awake and breathing. It was 1 AM. The next morning we got up to find that my mother-in-law had died in the middle of the night. For the record, I am an atheist and a skeptic. I have no explanation for this. When I was 9 or 10, it was a bad year. I was regularly physically and emotionally abused. But that year, I was sexually abused. On top of all that, I started having serious mental health issues. Well, when things were at their absolute worst, I started having dreams of this blonde lady telling me to hold on, that things would get better. It was so comforting and peaceful and continued as long as the extreme abuse continued. I didn't know who she was. I just figured I imagined her. Well, things finally simmer down, and the dreams stop. About a year later, Mom was going through old photo albums, and my blood freezes. I see the blonde woman from my dreams. I ask who she is. Turns out, it was an aunt I had who died shortly before I was born. Edit. Holy hell. Thank you everyone for the kindness you all have shown. I'm tearing up. I didn't expect that. I'm almost 40 now. It was a long time ago. I still have scars. But I was lucky enough to get therapy when I got free from my family. Things aren't great, but they're much improved and I have no complaints. And that's enough for me. Thank you all. Damn. See, your aunt was there for you. I hope you are doing better now. I am so sorry that happened to you. I've experienced similar things as a child. But it's lovely that you had someone looking out for you in your worst moments. I was about 15 and trying to sleep but having an asthma attack. Late in the night I started hearing a rhythmic breathing from the floor next to the bed. It wasn't scary, more comforting. And it wasn't me, because my breathing sounded way more fricked up than that. It helped me calm down and get to sleep. Even though I was still sick, I was able to get my hands on an inhaler in the morning. At the time I thought it was a friendly ghost. I later rationalized that maybe I was hearing a family member through the heating ducts. What I realized years later, when I had a dog, was that it had sounded exactly like a big dog sleeping next to the bed. So now I'm 50/50 on whether a ghost dog came to visit me, or my own dog time traveled back about 10 years before she was born to comfort me, or my own dog time traveled back about 10 years before she was born to comfort me. Sounds exactly like the thing dogs would do if they could time travel. Not scary but still not explainable. When I was 22, I visited my grandma in her retirement home at Christmas. She was well, nothing out of the ordinary. A few days later I traveled to my then boyfriend across the country. 2 days after New Year's I woke up at 2 a.m. crying, and I just couldn't stop. I wasn't really sad or overly emotional, but the tears just kept streaming down my face. Nothing like that ever happened and I was kind of confused, as was my BF. I fell back asleep a few hours later. 3 days later I was informed that my grandma had died that night at about 2 a.m. Due to the divorce of my parents, communication was difficult and we were only informed after the funeral. I don't believe in anything supernatural, but it's hard to wrap my head around, especially since nothing like this ever happened again. Something similar happened to me while I was in boot camp. I had a dream where my stepmom was talking to me, telling me everything was going to be okay, that my grandma loved me and I was going to get through this too. Woke up thinking that was weird. 2 days later I got a Red Cross message that my grandma had passed and the funeral had been the day I had the dream. That was so weird. I had a similar incident. It was a normal day for me, when all of a sudden my ears start ringing and I can hear my heartbeat and my head felt weird. Then my grandpa walks into the room. He was living with my family, to inform us that my unborn cousin just died. I had a sort of demonic mask on my shelf, and one day while I was working at my desk no more than 4 feet away from it, it just flew off the shelf and shattered on the floor. It didn't just fall off the shelf. It was like someone threw it across the room. The baffling part to me is that I am the one who made the mask, so I know it's not cursed by some voodoo hex or something. The ghost was anti-mask edit. First awards ever. Are we seriously going to get to 10k? That's insane. Unless you're cursed by some voodoo hex or something. I've had extremely vivid dreams of relatively inconsequential moments in my future life that I nonetheless keep locked away in a little corner of my head. And then when those moments actually occur, I get insane deja vu that throws me off until I remember the dreams. It's a very bizarre thing, but it ultimately doesn't mean much to me. An edit since this seems to have blown up. Thank you everyone for sharing your similar experiences with this. And also thank you to those of you attempting to explain what could be going on when the events occur. No matter your stance on it, it's fascinating reading some of the details on what might cause it, or whether it's just some trick of the mind. It's very informative. I once went to open a cupboard in the kitchen and had a deja vu feeling. I froze and remembered the moment vividly and knew that a mug would fall when I opened the cupboard. I held my hand out and opened it and the mug fell directly into my hand. I felt badass. Thought I had superpowers for a day or so. So did I. But they're not very important. Just random moments seen while sleeping. Like a second dream. Cannot remember them until it happens. Now I rarely see them. Was in college walking to class. Went to cross a busy street and a hand grabbed my shoulder. Quite hard. And stopped me. A car zoomed by that would have killed me. Nobody was behind me or anywhere close enough to have stopped me. Guardian angel? I've had near driving incidents like this. Multiple times. It feels like something else just takes the wheel and swerves it. Shoot. Invariably when someone else is with me. How did you miss that, dear? I'd like to think that I caught it but didn't consciously register it. Like the lizard brain we all have was dodging shoot. But I don't know. Still weird. I had something very similar happen to me. I was crossing the street at the crosswalk and took one step into the road when all of a sudden I felt the word stop shoot through my body and froze. Right at that moment a truck flies by right in front of me. I was nearly clipped by the side mirror. I have told myself that although I didn't realize it, I must have seen the car flying through the red light in my peripheral vision. But I don't know. There's a story from when I was 4-5 years old. My grandmother was looking through old family photos and asking me who the people were. We got to a picture of my grandfather, and she asked me who he was, and I said, he died suddenly at home when my mother was 10, in the same house we lived in, so I never met him. She asked me how I knew that. I told her, oh, he comes and tucks me in and tells me he loves me sometimes after you go to bed. My sister has a similar story. She was 4 years old. Our mum was showing her family photos. Sister pointed on the photo of our great grandfather who died 2 years prior to her birth and told mum she knows him because he sometimes sits on the couch in the living room at grandma's house, and once he wanted to give her a cookie. My mum asked her to describe it. She said it was a marmalade-filled butter cookie. There's no way she knew that's the exact kind of cookies our great grandpa used to give everyone in the family. My sister is 39 now and she doesn't remember it at all. Our mum is the only one who does. My daughter was about 3 at the time when she picked up a picture of my grandmother. She's in the clouds far, far away. I hadn't had a single conversation with her about death. My siblings and I all had the same dream on the same night a year ago. It was exactly 1 year after my mum died and we all had a dream about her, and she was in the same place and was speaking to us. She reassured us that she was okay and she was with her mum and my dead siblings and that her dad is in the bad place. The next day we all realized we had the same dream. We even all independently drew a picture of the place we saw her and wrote down the name of the place it resembled. Most of my siblings took that as an actual message from my mum, but my youngest sister and I like to believe that we have all developed some freaky hive mind low level telepathy, lol. Not nearly as meaningful as yours. But in high school I experienced a really weird dream phenomenon. There was a girl I'd had a major crush on, but hadn't seen her in some time, and I had a dream she shaved her head. Next day in school my best friend tells me for whatever reason he had a weird dream that we were hanging out with this girl and she'd shaved her head. Okay, a little odd, but now it gets real odd. Being teenagers with nothing to do, we hang out at the local coffee shop a lot, so that night we go there, and lo and behold, there she is, with a damn shaved head. We nearly ate our pants. I could not believe it. It's so silly and stupid. But it made me wonder if there isn't some bigger fabric connecting us all and the three of us tapped into it that night. Any ideas why her father would be in the bad place? When I was 12 I woke up with a start at 2:30 in the morning. I wasn't dreaming and didn't know why I woke up. My parents told me the next morning that my grandfather had had a heart attack and went for emergency surgery. He died at 2:30 in the morning. My cousin told me the same story when his father died. He said he had a moment where he just got massive chills and a feeling of being overwhelmed that lasted for about 10 seconds only to get a call 10 minutes later that his father had just passed away. Got visited by my Phil when he passed. I was a couple hours away from his hospital, where my wife was visiting him. This visit left me with an urge to call the wife to check in, and she said he's passing so she can't talk. The visit was a warm feeling, one of love, with a side helping of please take care of my daughter. Neither of us spoke the other's language, but the meaning was also clear in spite of the language barrier.